In early 2024, the streets of Jordan exploded, but not over politics, over football. For a brief, shining moment, an entire nation was united. But what if that unity wasn't just about sports? What if it was also a political strategy? See, governments get it. Nothing unites or distracts people like a winning team. But it's a hell of a gamble. Because when the winds dry up, that magical unity can vanish, and all the problems you were trying to ignore come roaring back. This is the story of how national teams get turned into political instruments, and right now, there's no better example than Jordan. To understand the power of their national football team, you first have to understand the fractures running through the country. Jordanian society has this deep-seated tension between its native East Bank population and citizens of Palestinian origin, many of whom are descended from refugees of the 1948 and 1967 wars. This isn't just a social divide, it plays out on the football pitch. The country's two biggest clubs, Al Faisali and Al Wahdat, are symbols of this split. Al Faisali is the establishment club, the team of native East Bank Jordanians. Al Wahdat, on the other hand, was born in a Palestinian refugee camp and is the team of the diaspora. When they play each other, it's more than a game. It's a proxy for political tension, where you can hear ethnic slurs and even chants against the monarchy, a red line that's rarely crossed. Back in 2010, one of their matches devolved into a riot that left hundreds of people injured. This is the reality the Jordanian government has to manage. And maybe their best tool for doing it is the national team, Al Nashama. Unlike the club rivalries that tear people apart, the national team brings them together. When Al Nashama wins, they aren't East Bank or Palestinian. They are just Jordan. Their historic run to the 2023 AFC Asian Cup final sparked celebrations that shut down the streets of Amman. It wasn't just about sports. It was a moment of what sociologists call collective effervescence, where all those tribal and ethnic divides just seemed to meld away. This is a classic nation-building play. Governments have always known that a winning team can forge a shared identity out of thin air. Jordan's own King Abdullah II has tied the team's success to national pride, praising their outstanding performance as a reflection of the high morale of Jordanians. For a country juggling internal divisions and external pressures, a beloved national team is priceless. It creates a simple, unifying story that can, for a little while, make everyone forget about their political and economic problems. This is Soft Power 101, winning hearts and minds not through force, but through shared emotion. Jordan is just the latest example of a political playbook that's as old as sport itself. A national team is a tool, and that tool can be used to build up, to distract, or to tear things down. For the good, you can't do better than the 1995 Rugby World Cup in South Africa. The country was just 1 year out from the end of apartheid, a tinderbox of racial hatred. Nelson Mandela, the new president, saw the World Cup, which they were hosting, as a once-in-a-lifetime chance for reconciliation. The problem? The national team, the Springboks, was a symbol of the white supremacist government. For black South Africans, their colors represented oppression. But Mandela took a huge political risk and embraced them. He famously walked out to the final wearing a Springbok jersey, and when they won, the image of him handing the trophy to the white Afrikaner captain, Francois Pienaar, became a symbol of a new rainbow nation. For a moment, sport helped heal a country's deepest wounds. Then there's the bad, when sport is used to distract. Take Egypt under President Hosni Mubarak. While the country was struggling with corruption and repression, the national football team was on a legendary winning streak, bagging 3 straight Africa Cup of Nations titles from 2006 to 2010. The regime latched onto that success. Mubarak and his sons were always at the games, forging a mental link between their rule and the team's glory days. These wins were the perfect distraction. In early 2006, shortly after a controversial election and a horrific ferry disaster that killed over 1,000 Egyptians, the regime's response was muted. Instead of addressing the public anger, they threw a massive celebration for the victorious football team, shifting the nation's focus from a national tragedy to a national triumph. And finally, you get the ugly, when the passion of the game spills into actual conflict. In 1969, Honduras and El Salvador were in a bitter dispute over land and immigration. Tensions were sky high. And right in the middle of all this, their national teams were set to play each other in a World Cup qualifier. The games were a powder keg. The first match in Honduras was surrounded by riots. The second in El Salvador was even more violent. Just a few weeks after the final game, the two countries went to war. The conflict, which became known as the Football War, wasn't caused by the matches, but they were the spark that lit the fuse. And this is the massive gamble any government takes when it wraps itself in the flag of its sports team. A win can bring unity, but a loss can shatter the illusion and make everything worse. In Jordan, that narrative of unity is more fragile than it looks. The same passion that unites fans for Al Nashma regularly explodes into violence between Al Faisali and Al Wydad. That rivalry is still a raw, open wound. A 2009 match was abandoned because of what a U.S. diplomatic cable, later released by WikiLeaks, called anti-Palestinian hooliganism and slogans denigrating the Palestinian origins of both the Queen and the Crown Prince. It's a brutal reminder that the harmony on display during national team games is temporary. So, what happens when the winning stops? The political tool can blow up in your face. In Egypt, the same stadiums Mubarak used for distraction became the training grounds for a revolution. The hyper-organized fan groups, the Ultras, had spent years battling state security inside those stadiums. They were one of the only groups in the country who knew how to fight back against the regime. When the 2011 revolution kicked off, the Ultras were on the front lines in Tahrir Square, using their street smarts to help bring down the very same president who had used their passion to his advantage. This danger is always there. Across the Middle East, football stadiums are often a pretty good measure of public anger. In Iran, national team wins have been followed by anti-regime protests. In Saudi Arabia, princes have been booed and had things thrown at them during matches, a very public sign of disrespect. Which brings us back to Jordan. They had this incredible run in the Asian Cup, and the dream of a World Cup qualification felt, for a moment, within reach. But what if that dream had ended not in a hard-fought battle, but in a humiliating loss? Would that unity have survived? Or would all that passion, already mixed with frustration over the economy and politics, have boiled over? That's the gamble. A government pours all its national pride into a sports team, hoping for a win. But if that team cracks, the backlash can be vicious. The energy doesn't just vanish, it gets redirected. And usually, the new target is the government itself. The link between a national team and political power is a double-edged sword. At its best, like with Mandela's Springboks, it can be a symbol of healing. More often, it's just a handy distraction, a way for leaders to manufacture goodwill, like in Mubarak's Egypt. And at its worst, it can pour gasoline on a fire like it did in the football war. Governments will always be tempted to use sports this way. It's an easy way to sell a simple story, us together winning. But it's a bet on something no politician can ever control, the final score. The feeling of unity is intoxicating, but it's also paper thin. A single loss or a bad call can tear it all down, leaving a government exposed to a fired-up population that's suddenly looking for someone else to blame. The story of Jordan's Al Nashma is a perfect modern chapter in this long, complicated history. It shows that even when a game can bring a nation together, the real-world problems of politics, identity, and inequality are always there, just waiting for the final whistle. What about in your country? What role does your national team play? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more stories on where sports and politics collide, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.